And hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Wartburg Infusion Entertainment Review. It's episode number 7. I'm Mr. Wartburg. That's Mr. Fusion.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. And I just hit my microphone, so we're getting off to a great start.
Oh, yeah. New microphone, you gotta break it in. You gotta punch it. You know, it's like a catcher's mitt. You just gotta pound that leather, man.
Phrasing. Are we doing phrasing in 2020? I don't know. Is phrasing still a thing?
Now, based off Jackie's server. Was that Jackie's server I saw it in the other day? Was that with you?
Which one? What did she say?
I can't remember. It was something Iris said. Yeah.
Iris said, yeah. Yeah, that was, yeah. I think actually there were two instances of phrasing with Iris last week. Yeah.
Yeah. Not to get too inside baseball on stuff, people, but Jackie's server, if we ever talk about it, she has an entire channel dedicated to 69s in the wild. So yeah. That's just what it is.
Yep.
So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's been a few weeks since we've actually made a podcast together. I had a special episode and a half with Christian, which I don't know what the fuck I did. What in the metadata hit it off, but I'm up to 350 views on that one, which is like nuts for me. I barely get above 10.
Well, you kind of hit two demos there. You hit the Expanse and the Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, like all in the same week. And then, I mean, Christian's quite a bit more famous than me. You know?
Of course.
Plus, he's one of the lead actors in RVB Zero, which I didn't even mention in the show. But we were just like, fuck it, we're here to talk about the Expanse, and the Expanse only. Fuck the other shit. So, but yeah, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got some news. We got some 2020 stuff. We got some Wonder Woman stuff. It's going to be a dang good time. So, Fusion, it's been, I think, 3 weeks, 20 days since we've made a podcast together.
Been a while, man. Been a while.
So what have you been up to?
Christmas time, opened up a lot of cool gifts. Gave a lot of cool gifts. Gifts with a T. Caught up on a few things. I was getting through a few of the series. The only thing I will say, I want to say this, I appreciate Christian for coming on to chat about the Expanse with you. I mentioned this last week. I have every intention of jumping into the Expanse during this holiday break. My goal is over the next couple days to knock out the first couple seasons, because I know you've been like really harping on me for not watching that.
It's so good.
It's really, really good. Went back, rewatched the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just because I think that's one of my favorite shows.
It's damn good.
Also went back and watched a few episodes. I have actually halfway through the first season of The Flash, which is another really good. The first two seasons of The Flash are just unbelievably awesome.
Yeah,
in every regard. They were just great TV. The special effects for having a low budget on the CW were really good, actually, for the show. Much better than like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's where I love the story, but let's be honest, the CGI really struggled at times. And
it took them a while to get good shit. Season 5 had some dope stuff in space, but
yes, they did. My hope is if they end up doing a S.H.I.E.L.D. miniseries, which all indicators are they're going to steer towards something in that regard very soon. They like get ready for some type of announcement over the next couple of months. But I really think, I watched those shows. Played a little bit of video games, played a little bit of 7 Days to Die, dipped my toe into Cyberpunk, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and dipped my toe in briefly and pulled it right back out. Just that's really it, man. Just caught up on a little bit of sports, watch a few teams that shouldn't be in the playoffs, college playoffs get there, and a few bowl games, a couple NBA disasters, watching the Rockets try to get rid of James Harden, and just a disaster.
It's been a roller coaster in and of itself.
Now, I think we follow each other on Twitter, so you saw like pretty much that 72-hour stretch, which is just a nightmare of sports information.
Yeah.
For me as a Rockets fan, but that's really it. Just taking a break. It was a really long work year for me, so dipped in on a few things, and I'm looking forward to what I think we both agree on this. The first quarter of content is going to be really good. For nerds, for fans like us, for geekdom, there's going to be a lot of really good shit this first quarter of 2021.
2021, Stealth has a lot of that's intriguing as fuck shit. Like they got a lot of stuff, and that was before HBO dropped the bomb and all the stuff dropping on the Max.
And that was just most of it was just like, okay. I mean, we could go down real quick, but well, let's go down later. Let's.
Yeah.
What have you been doing the last 21 days?
Much like you said, I've been watching The Expanse Season 5. I've also been rewatching it because like a dum-dum, I realized I could watch it on my 4K because I hadn't been. I'd just been on the PC. Because, I stream. I do everything right here. I got the consoles routed here. I got my 3 monitors set up. It's great, but they're all 1080p monitors. Got the 4K right there, and I finally started watching The Expanse in 4K. Holy fuck, is this show stunning. There's a shot fusion in the pilot that if you're not hooked by then, I honestly don't know if the show is for you. It's the first time they execute a zero turn high G maneuver.
Okay.
And like how they shoot it through space, it's like a really, you start far away from the ship and then a pan up flyby of the huge ass ice hauler, and they're like, prepare for high G burn, make sure your drug dispensers are full, and then they like show it flipping and burning, and it's just stunning as fuck. And that's from 5 years ago. That shot.
So
And
watch it
great.
in 4K. If I need to watch it, watch it in 4K.
If you're gonna watch it in the 4K. It is a stunning show. So I've been rewatching that. I'm up in my rewatch through season 2, and then thankfully it's a short enough show where I'm not like diving into old episodes. But just doing that podcast with Christian made me realize, man, I hadn't watched season 1 in forever. We were talking about characters, and I'm like, I forgot this character was in the show. Holy shit! So that got me back into it, and that's been a fun ride. I've been continuing my watch of Deep Space Nine. I'm finally up to where I was old enough to start getting into the show as a kid. My dad had turned it off by this point, but I remember when the Defiant as a ship showed up for the first time in that show. Okay. It was in the premiere of season 3, because it's a starship that cloaks. Like, it's a Federation ship that can cloak. That's fucking cool, and it's a cool ass fighter that's specifically designed to be a warship. Super cool. And I was watching that show, and I was realizing that show was 20 years before its time. If it was made now, it would be the greatest Star Trek show of them all. Because
you wouldn't think Frontier, if Frontier was made in 2020, it would be probably
Frontier. Which one are you talking about?
I'm getting this wrong, aren't I?
So it's TOS animated. Yeah. You got TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Enterprise.
Enterprise had some dope shit. Don't get me wrong, and it
was a good, very well written Star Trek.
Especially
what it was.
Seasons 3 and 4 were excellent.
Yeah.
If they'd have gotten to actually do the Romulan War, I'd have been a very happy nerd. They didn't. But Deep Space Nine, now that I'm watching it kind of concurrently with The Expanse, I'm going, oh, there's some like legit primetime cable shit in this show. Like, they actually deal with the fact that, one of the characters was in a resistance cell, and she's really fucked up from like her planetary war that we didn't get to see, and we kind of get in bits and pieces. And they build up this extra, like, this alien, Dominion, like the Dominion, which is just a cool fucking name for alien civilization. And like, they actually build them up over time, and like, they fight for 4 fucking seasons on this show. Like, the war goes on for forever, and Starfleet gets their ass kicked a lot. And like, there's some really cool shit in this show. It just happens to be stuck in this era of where, we needed 26 episodes a season of just total bullshit. It's like, no, man, you trimmed this thing down to 13 episodes? Fuck. That'd be a great show. And it's still really good. I'm really enjoying the characters, like rewatching the early seasons that I'd never really seen before. God, it's just fun to go back and watch old shows sometimes that you never really appreciated.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of fun, so I'm rewatching that. And then already put in 60 hours in 2 weeks of Skyrim after I re-downloaded it, because I'm a fucking idiot. But I got 45 mods installed right now, and I'm having a blast.
Yeah, every time I look on Steam or on Discord, I see Skyrim.
Hey, man. I just finished the Thieves Guild quest. I'm finished. I'm finally doing the Stones of Bresnia, those like little stones you can pick up that have no quest markers in the vanilla game.
Yep.
There's 24 of them. So I just downloaded a mod to give you the quest markers. Just like, yes. And I'm loving that. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm just really so hyped for Expanse Season 5. It's been so great. It's been so
it's funny because it's one of those shows where the more like I try not to read into this like deep into the spoilers, but just from reading from people, it's just a really good show in terms of just like quality.
Oh, it's like well made.
Like just well produced and well made, well directed, kind of like The Boys, a show like that, where like all around just from like cinematography to the acting to the scripting, everything's just solid, which is okay. So and like you said, it's hard to believe it's been 5 seasons, but you've been telling me for years now, for 5 years now, you got to watch this, you got to watch this, you got to watch this, and I was like, I am gonna watch it, and then I looked at I went in and looked at the season count, and I'm like, holy shit, it's been around. This is the 5th fucking season. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I better catch up now, man, because If not, I'm gonna be like way behind and just gonna have a lot of hours to log in. So yeah, the goal is then over the next few days while I have some time, like the rest of the week off and going into next week, I'll probably catch it all up and I'll touch base with you guys and let you know my thoughts on it.
Excellent. Now, I will want to say one of the things that is interesting about that show is because it started on Sci-Fi, like the channel,
Yeah.
and got picked up by Prime. It, along with 12 Monkeys, which is another show I've been on you about, that was like Sci-Fi's last gasp of, no, we can still make dope shit, people. Pay attention. Both those shows, for different reasons, because clearly Expanse had a better budget. Clearly. Watching the show comparatively to 12 Monkeys. Totally different budget. But man, they were just both really fucking awesome, cool sci-fi concepts that fucking went for it. Like, and what I really appreciate on the show is one of the things that really annoyed me with like Battlestar, which is Expanse gets compared to it a lot because of like how technical it is.
Yeah.
They're not going with the religious angle of sci-fi, which you can do, but you have to stick that landing, and it's a very fine needle to thread.
Yeah.
Battlestar didn't quite get there in the end. They tried, but didn't. Expanse is just like, fuck it. There's religion in the world, but it ain't in the story. Who gives a shit, right? I really appreciate that, and that's just something, again, compared to Deep Space Nine, because religion is baked into that show, too, from, like, the pilot on. I appreciate a sci-fi story not touching on that, and just going a different direction. So, that's one little bit.
It's fair.
Plus,
I think it's a trope. It's a trope that happens a lot in sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
When will they get to the religion aspect, the story, that angle?
Last thing before we get into the new stuff. This week's Expanse had the best choreographed suplex I've seen in maybe ever. That's not in the WWE. It's insane. Here. Like, guys getting picked up, choke slammed, like just like choke held up here, like off the ground, because the guy who's fighting has body modifications. And he doesn't. And so the guy holding him gets shot, turns around, like kind of does a half turn to look at the guy who shot him. The guy he's holding kicks him in the nuts, drops, suplexes him over his head down an elevator shaft. And it is the slickest shot and choreography I have seen in years. It just made me stand up in my chair going, holy fuck, I need a gif of that right the fuck now. It's awesome. So
wait,
cool.
you're saying that it was better than the Wesley Snipes Blade 2 suplex?
Oh, definitely. Like, in terms of, especially, we were talking about like how it's shot. It's just, it's just clean as fuck. Like, it's like one cut. It's like the cut, because they set up the guy turning, and they cut back, and you just see him drop out of his hand and suplex him over the head. It's like, holy shit. Awesome. Just stunning.
Okay.
I really
like
the show.
Can't wait to watch.
Okay. Enough Expanse talk.
Okay.
Let's get into some of the news. Now, Fusion, you mentioned Cyberpunk. You dipped your toe in and you pulled it back out. One of the stories I have in here in our doc is Cyberpunk's no good, very bad launch. So, what was your experience like with Cyberpunk?
Well, I have kind of a complaint, but I'll get to that in a sec. For me, it was obviously this game was rushed. We all, there's no argument there. I think the biggest thing that's come of this was a game that they really, really wanted on the next gen consoles. And I think where the divide was that the publisher with CD, I always forget the name, is it CD Red?
CD Projekt Red.
CD Projekt Red. They promised the world to fans with just having Keanu Reeves be showcasing it at was it E3? I think it was it E3 or
there was a great E3 reveal.
Yeah, it was a great reveal, but when you set it up like that and then you at that point really have no direction, like, okay, we're strictly going next gen. Okay, well then you put that fucker off until next gen is ready to come out, right? Okay, well, next gen gets delayed a little bit. Okay, now they're announced. Okay, now we're probably going to have a shortage of systems. Okay, well, while this is all going on, we're also going to go previous gen. And they didn't optimize the game. And at that point, it just shows to me that there was really bad leadership on their part, on top of the fact that this game just wasn't really finished. It just wasn't finished. This has a GTA 5 feel to it, like the map when you move around, but the AI is awful. Like the people that walk around, the cars when you're driving around, the AI is awful. The mood, I know the lights and the colors really get you and suck you in because it's GTA and a Blade Runner type of world mixed in with cyberpunking. But it just wasn't. You could tell this wasn't a finished game. This wasn't a finished game because so much of it, and then the dialogue. Oh God, the dialogue. After about 5 hours of gameplay, you're like, I've played this game, technically for 6.5 hours. The system says 5. I've probably watched dialogue or dealt with dialogue for about 3/4 of that, really.
Jesus.
On top of the fact that the gun mechanics are just shitty. I mean, we all admit that Rockstar's combat mechanics are pretty bad. They're very outdated. They need to improve that. But these are really, really bad. Like really bad. I was watching someone stream this the day it was released, and he was playing in a mission where he's in a warehouse shooting. And I'm not kidding. He's just wasting bullets. He's like, I'm fucking hitting these guys, headshots, and I'm just sitting here wasting bullets. Okay, I've run out of ammo to take out these guys. And he had it on a more difficult setting, and I mean that's on him. But he's just like, what do I have to do to kill these fuckers? And then he basically had to. It was easier for him to risk dying and going in and meleeing these guys because bullets weren't effective enough. And so it's just what it looks like is it's just an imbalanced game from top to bottom, imbalanced. And so I played it for a few hours, and here's the problem with it. I bought it on Steam, which it plays much better on PC than console, by the way. Still to this day, I'm told that it's still better on PC than console. They just wouldn't return it. I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go and ask for the first time for a video game to be returned, or a game to be my purchase to be returned, and they refused. They basically said you had too much time. You logged in too much time. And I was like, well, I logged maybe 4 or 5 hours. You go in, oh, you have to play 2 hours or less for a refund. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of shitty. So basically, someone that buys a console version, no matter how long they played it, they're going to get a refund. But Steam says
they think that.
They think that. Well, most people that I know that got a refund, they put a lot of hours into it. But wait, the part that cracks me up about this, Warburg, is that the people that did get the refunds are complaining that they can no longer log into the game after they get a refund.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like,
shit, you gave it back.
You gave it back. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, do you not have any common sense here? Come on.
It's like I don't take a shirt back and then want to wear it the next day and be mad at the store.
Yeah, I mean, but there were literally thousands of people on social media complaining to Steam or to whoever they returned it to, that they were no longer able to access the digital version. It's like, yeah, you returned it and you got a refund. But just a bad game. Just a bad game, and it's very disappointing. It's actually setting up what's to be a pretty bad rollout for next gen. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Been a rough couple months here.
And you couple that with a lot of games just punting on the launch window. Halo being the biggest one, but like Halo's the one this year that was the first one to fall on its face. And it wasn't even out. That was just a demo, right? It was just hey, here's the game, and it fell on its face. They've rebounded, I think, significantly since then, because like you look at some of the screenshots they showed of the multiplayer stuff they're working on, and holy shit, it looks gorgeous. Like the armor customization looks like Reach meets like what they're doing with the Master Chief Collection, which is just perfect. And the models look great, and looks like, oh, that looks like fucking Halo. That's it. That's what we wanted. So I'm hoping the campaign gets there. But like, man, Cyberpunk right out of the gate, on top of just nobody get the consoles. Like, just what a shit show.
It is.
All the way around, gaming for like a month was just a shit show. Everybody except PC players of all people were like, man, this sucks.
Yeah.
It was just a nightmare.
Both of us, we're both PC. Normally we play PC, but then we jump into consoles too. So it's like PC primary, then console. I feel bad for for me as an adult, a 42-year-old man, I get upset about it, but I'm not going to go full, I guess you could say, Karen, and say like, we need to shut everything down. And I am disappointed because there's a lot of young people that are getting the wrong impression of the industry right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I liken it to that video game crash in 1983. The big difference is that 83 crash was due to companies like Atari not licensing out games and publishers creating just all, KFC, oatmeal video game. Like everybody had a video game, Kraft Peanut Butter and Jelly had their own video game. Kool-Aid had its own video game on Atari. And so it just became a bloated market, and people just lost it. And then Pac-Man and ET just destroyed them. People had enough of it at that point. I think we're close to that, in that we're in a really bad time economically, culturally, socially. The environment's really bad, and then on top of that, both publishers, game publishers, and these system developers, really, they just completely dropped the ball. They overpromised and underdelivered. And for me, at this point, with people starting to struggle with cash over the next 6 months, if this gets into a really bad shape, you could see some of these, maybe not the major ones, but maybe some of these mid-level development companies have to start cutting people, really trimming their rosters. And what will happen is that'll create an even bigger crunch. We know about crunch in the industry. We know about
that's the biggest problem, is that
it's a very fragile environment right now, and especially with COVID right now, and it's not going to get any better. It's going to get slightly better over the next 6 months, hopefully, but we're not going to get back to normal for a while, somewhere deeper into 2021. And by that point, you could look at this industry could really take a big hit, kind of like the movie industry,
Yeah. Because
we've talked about movie industry.
Yeah, the biggest concern is that, you mentioned the 80s crash, and that was the companies themselves didn't understand the market. It was so new, so fast, and exploded so quickly. No one knew what the fuck they were doing. No one. Atari didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Nintendo hadn't even figured it out yet. Right? They're the ones that fucking brought it back, but they weren't really Nintendo yet when everything went down. They weren't that yet. Them getting that is what kind of saved the industry. Saved, but now it's more of the issue of the money doesn't still quite understand it. And that's the investor side. There's all this pressure from all the money that they're bringing in, because they see how much money gaming makes. So they're bringing all this investment capital in, putting all this pressure on the money side, not understanding, no, you got to back the fuck off. Or what comes out the other side from this pressure is not going to last. It's going to be fragile, broken. Everyone's going to be a Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
If there's too much pressure on the investor side. And that's kind of on the management investor side. That's what happened here. And the whole industry's kind of getting there again.
Yeah.
So that's the real concern. And I hope this class action suit with Cyberpunk, because that was something I linked in our doc, was I hope that kind of makes some studios wake the fuck up and realize, no, hey, we're going to take your money, but here's your expectation. 100%. We're not going to fuck around. We're not going to rush a game out just so you can get a little extra return. Because that's stupid. If you want that, don't invest. Don't bring us your money. And obviously that's an extremely simplified version of how investment happens. But
and how about Sony looking like assholes once again by, when we talk about the refunds that were issued out a few weeks ago, the announcement of refunds were going to be offered and honored under specific criteria. Sony was basically saying, yeah, we're not doing that. We're not going to do that.
I will say this. Given their response, the next thing they did, I have to assume CD Projekt Red just said, fuck it, put out the statement, don't even talk to Sony. Or whoever they talked to at Sony was not the high enough person they needed to talk to. Because the next thing they did was fucking pull it from the store.
Yep.
You couldn't even buy it anymore. That's where you crossed some serious lines. The publisher, not just the publisher, the storefront's pulling your game. That's a serious fucking problem. And, so I'll give Sony that. They didn't half-ass it. They just said, fuck it, we're not selling it anymore. Because I gotta believe CD Projekt Red tried to throw them under the bus to give them, no, you guys issue the refunds.
Yeah.
Because we've already sold all our pre-orders. That was the other thing, and all their statements was all pre-orders, all this stuff. Clearly the pressure of the money and the pre-promised sales rushed this thing out the door when it wasn't ready.
Well, you're kind of... Are you talking about Cyberpunk 2077, or are you talking about next gens? Because the same thing happened with consoles.
Specifically next gen, or with Cyberpunk compared to next gen, but it's everything.
But Sony and Microsoft did the same damn thing. They overpromised. They took so many pre-orders, and then GameStop, Best Buy, the Microsoft store, nobody was selling. They took all of these pre-orders, and then no one was shipping that first week. I didn't get mine from Amazon until a week later. Why? Because they tried to claim it was a shipping issue. When I called, when I checked in with Microsoft, with them, oh, it's a shipping issue with Amazon. Call Amazon. They're like, no, we just don't have the stock for it. Well, then why do you take all these pre-orders if you know you don't have inventory for it? Yep. You know why? Because someone, either Microsoft or Amazon are lying. One of them or both are lying, And so I think it's a little bit of both of them, I think they had raised expectations. They saw, let's take the pre-order money, and then after the fact, oh shit, we don't have enough supply to meet the demand. Okay, well, we'll just slowly get it there to them, and they're just going to have to like it, I mean, it's just that's how things are done in this country, right? We have an idiot over in the Senate that's doing the same thing with stimulus checks right now. We're going to give you 600 and you're going to fucking like it, right? I hate to get political, but it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it kind of echoes that sentiment, we're going to take your money when we want it, but when you need it back, okay, we're going to give it to you at your rate, at our pace,
It's people
we'll handle it at our pace.
Just stupidly obstinate in the face of money.
Yeah.
It's just like people
right.
not realizing that development of any project is a moving target.
Yep.
And we've gotten so used to firm launch windows and dates that, at some point that equation of, the pressure to get it out for the money, for the ROI versus the pressure to make a quality product, they don't always mesh. They don't always meet where you want them to meet, kind of in that perfect middle ground of, everybody's happy. And for a long time, we were kind of spoiled with some, because we didn't always know all these stories. They didn't always break, And this one broke big.
Yep.
And it broke bigger because it didn't break early. It broke on launch day. It broke in the days after. There was no, Last of Us leak months ahead of time of the story. That didn't happen with Cyberpunk. There were no leaks, which is crazy because they're the crunch stories that they went through kind of leaked, but that was it. That was the only thing that leaked. All this other shit that apparently happened behind the scenes, where now the developers are just furious with the management team and stuff like that. None of that came out, which is crazy for a release as hyped as this, that nobody got that scoop.
Yeah.
And that's what amplified the story even more after the fact, is because this was all new. It's all in the face of, the product's on the market and it's all this bad.
Yeah.
Yikes. And I was reading up on famous bad video game launches, because I didn't get into gaming until college, really. In a serious get in the industry way.
Sure.
You may remember this, because John Romero is the guy that made or helped create Doom, Wolfenstein, and what was the third one he did? Quake. Because he worked at id. And he did a game called Daikatana in the year 2000.
Oh, I vaguely remember. It sounds familiar to me, man.
I've been reading a lot of stuff, and they're like, yeah, it's basically Cyberpunk's launch is that, but on steroids. Because it involves investor money, it involves management, it involves the market itself, it involves the publishing companies, the storefront companies, Samsung or Sony and Microsoft. It is so much worse than that. And that one was that sunk a studio. It's only sold 40,000 copies. The market, it directly changed how you can market video games.
Yep.
Because it was the John Romero's gonna make you his bitch stuff. It was crazy how that changed the industry around the time of the mid to late life cycle of the PlayStation 1 on. How much that shaped gaming. I'm curious what the long-term ramifications of Cyberpunk's not just stumble or faceplant out of the gate. I don't even know how you'd want to describe, in an analogy, what this launch has been for Cyberpunk, but it's seriously just bad on every front. Every front. So, I'm curious where does the industry go? How does this affect AAA development? What happens next? This is going to be crazy to watch.
What happens next, the next couple of major titles that come out over the next few 6-7 months, if they're disasters as well, I could see a scenario where the gaming community, the consumer, starts to bite back. And if that happens, maybe, just maybe, there'll be sweeping changes across the board. I'm talking about from a corporate standpoint in terms of how these development companies work, how the project management's held for these games, and how they're marketed. We need to stop going in and releasing info on a game 2 years before it's even ready for beta testing. Mm-hmm. Remember 2.5 years ago, I was super stoked because there was a Beyond Good and Evil Part 2 coming out. Yep. And we haven't heard a damn thing since then.
Might as well not exist.
Nothing. Like, remember, Aisha Tyler shows it at Ubisoft, and
Yeah.
I was like, fuck yeah, dude, because that was one of those under the radar PS2 games that PlayStation games I absolutely loved, in the early 2000s. Loved it. I thought the graphics were a little ancient, but the story was great. The gameplay was fun, and I was looking forward to the sequel. Like, they were really going to create a next, not a next gen, but they were really going to push the envelope of the Xbox One and the PS4. And I was really hoping for that. And that was 2.5 years ago. And it's nothing since then. And so I think for me, I think you've noticed this, I've become a bit bitter about this whole thing because with the crunch stuff, the Gamergate, the last three years, it's really shown the dark underbelly of that industry. And it's a lot like the movie industry was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the movie studios. But it's shifted over to a younger workforce because the
A
people in the
younger,
gaming industry,
non-unionized workforce.
yeah, non-unionized, and they're of my age. They're of my generation, that Generation X folks, and it frustrates the hell out of me because I don't worry about myself. I think I've told you this, and I've said this on this show before. I don't worry about this too much because I'm a grown ass man with disposable income. I can do the things I want to do. I feel bad for the kids out there or the young folks, the early 20s, late teens, early 20s that scrape by to because this is what they live for. They scrape by to get a $500 next gen console, and then it's not delivered on time. And on top of that, they have no fucking games to play with.
Mm-hmm.
They have to play the same games they had on the previous gen. Oh, it's a tough world we live in. I get that. Like, the woe is me. I get it, guys. You don't have to come up with me with that. But it's just disappointing for the younger folks because it sets a bad precedence for them. And unfortunately, the industry, just like anything, like sports or any entertainment, nothing's going to change until we vote with our pocketbook. That's really it. That's how change happens, And I'm thinking we're at this point because of COVID and the way the economy is going, the way society is in a really tough spot right now. If another rollout happens in the next 6 months like this, I think we're going to hit a breaking point. We're going to get something close to like what happened in '83. Not gonna lie, not gonna lie.
I could see something like going down of like
It
for
won't be
me
of that
it's
magnitude.
oh, it ain't gonna be of that
But
magnitude. It's more gonna be for me. It's investors are gonna get scared, like
yeah,
skittish. Like
yeah,
then that means studios are gonna have to hire less people. That means you're gonna have far smaller budgets. AAA is probably gonna go away outside of the first party stuff. Like how does that change the power dynamic of, well, Microsoft can afford to run everything currently as it stands now. Like they don't have to change
yeah,
anything on their first party side because they're fucking Microsoft,
yep,
right? Sony ain't. Sony ain't even damn close to that. They don't even sniff that. Like, how does this affect them? Because they're top dog right now in the gaming industry on the console side, but like, not by that much. And as a company, definitely not. So
yeah.
like, how does this affect them? Like all those people that work for them, because it's also just people too. Like it's people making stupid ass decisions with games, but could have extremely far-reaching consequences for the industry as a whole for like a decade plus to come, which is
Here's
nuts.
the X factor. And it's probably a positive that I would think like a best case scenario is things like this do continue in this trend and the market does take a hit. The saving grace of all this would be maybe one or two, like a couple of small indie publishers that produce cool games like Among Us or a really good game,
Super
like a
giant.
good cheap Super Giant, a good independent game, Ori, like another God, never mind. I can't think of the name. The Forest game, Ori and the
Oh, like yeah, that's fuck, who is that? But
I
they're first
forget the
party
publisher.
Microsoft, yeah.
Oh, they're Microsoft now.
Can't remember who owns that, who what
they
that
weren't, they
studio
weren't
is.
they weren't at the very beginning. The sequel they were
Yeah,
under
the sequel
Microsoft, right?
that they got bought, yeah.
Okay. So, it takes one of those developers where they're a small company, they have a small group, 50 people, they create a really good game, but at the same time, everybody praises their work culture, they praise their project management, their timelines and everything that their team is not stressed out, like a balanced company that runs it well. If we get a few of these indie companies that do that, I think there is a little bit of a spark that could come of this. Something good could
Yeah.
come of it.
Like
I really think, yeah, that'd be a best case scenario,
yeah,
honestly.
like for me, like to get into the super giant thing, if they would have won, they should have won best game direction for Hades because they
Sure.
never crunched. They put it out over years in like the early access, and then they finally put out the 1.0, and it damn near won game of the year. Like they're a small ass studio. They are exactly what you were just talking about. They've put
Yeah.
out like 4 or 5 games that are all just, oh yeah, those are perfect. Like they're just perfect games. Like they're all 9s and 10s, and well, maybe not all of them because I don't think Transistor is that highly regarded, but still, that's still a good game. You know, like that's their weakest game, and it's like an 8. Like,
Yeah.
like they're pretty damn good. More studios don't like studios just don't run like that. Like that's a rare breed, and it's like not to harp on the union bit, but like that's part of the issue is like they thank God for their workers have a management team and ownership structure that's like, yeah, that matters to us.
Yeah.
Like, and not just in a it matters when we talk to the press. Like in a no, it matters so I can fucking sleep as a human being.
Yeah.
And studios aren't run like that. Studios are run by fucking maniacs. Like just like straight up Wolf of Wall Street assholes. That's who runs studios. And yeah, there got a lot of them are people that are into games, but like they're fucking crazy people. Like they're working 100 hours a week is totally fine. That's healthy. What are you talking about? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Those are the kind of people that run AAA studios. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work.
And I think this is going to be that it's going to become it's not vaporware. It's what's the proper term for Cyberpunk? What's it going to be? Legendware? I don't know. Infamyware? They're gonna call it something.
They're gonna find some way to. It's that overpromise, underdeliver.
Yeah,
that's what Cyberpunk is, but like to an extreme underdeliver degree.
Yeah,
but like the product doesn't even work half the time.
Yeah,
like that's not underdelivering. That's just shitting the bed. But yeah, so yeah, I don't want to harp on that Cyberpunk for too long, but I definitely wanted to talk about that because other than the pop culture media, HBO Max, Disney Plus side of stuff that you and I talk about, that's definitely the biggest gaming pop culture news of the last 3 weeks since we recorded, because we recorded right before this dropped. Yep. I don't even think Cyberpunk had been out yet by the time we last recorded. And so I was like, okay, we need to talk about this. Anything else you want to add on Cyberpunk before we move on to Wonder Woman and our retrospective?
I'm sure in the next couple of months there'll be patches coming out making the game playable and good for CD Projekt Red. Hopefully something will come of this in terms of improvement. But I feel bad though because I know there are some genuinely good people over there that wanted to put out a good game, but there's just too many hands in the pot right now. In the cookie jar. In the cookie jar is actually the better analogy.
Yeah.
Too many hands in the cookie jar right now, and everybody's reaching in. And instead of pulling out a cookie, everybody's getting crumbles. And that's a bigger picture and a bigger problem in the industry as a whole right now too.
Oh yeah, so, it's just too much pressure in the wrong points.
Yeah,
it's garbage in, garbage out. Like that's kind of what the gaming industry is getting to.
All of the analogies, guys.
We're just throwing them all at the wall, and we're seeing what sticks, which is kind of what game development is sometimes. Anyway, moving on, we're gonna get into some lighter fare, less going in on unions and shit. We're gonna be talking about kind of not really, because like HBO Max seriously stepped on some unions, and that's going to be a real interesting court cases.
Oh yeah,
in the 2021, which will probably drag into 2022, given how slow things go on that front. But that's beside the point. We're going to talk about Wonder Woman, which dropped on Christmas Day. It's the first 4K content on HBO Max, which I watched not on Christmas Day because I felt like absolute dog shit. I watched it on the day after Christmas. I had back-to-back colds. I got a cold the Monday before Christmas. That was more of a chest, mucus coughing one. I think it was from nasal drainage, and then it got irritated and it just hurt. And then felt good on Christmas. Day after, good-ish. Then my nose just kept running for days. And then now it's 2 different colds, with different symptoms. I was like, fuck. I'm finally feeling better. But I watched Wonder Woman.
Okay.
And I gotta say, I think it was Joey that asked me for a 3-word review. What did I tell him? Oh, okay, no, never mind. I thought I broke Discord there for a second.
Because you thought you went into the chat. I mean, to the Discord channel.
Yeah, I'm in the. I forgot. That's how I'm doing the thing, so I can't pull that. But yeah, basically, it was like it's all right. It was just.
It's all right.
It's okay. It had some interesting moments, and I thought some genuinely good parts. But just, man, I'm really glad this came out on streaming. That's maybe a better way to put it.
Yeah, it's like Wasn't the New Mutants. Won't go
Because
that far.
that was trash. This is not trash.
No.
Like this is like for me. Honestly, I felt similar to Man of Steel. Like in terms of I can see the good shit in here. There's some good shit in here. And then there's a whole lot that makes me just go. There's a whole lot of he lets his dad die by a fucking tornado moments in this movie. So it's not quite a mixed bag for me. And just soft. The blow is softened by the fact that I didn't have to pay for a movie ticket.
Are we talking spoilers on the show? Are we going to do
Let's
that?
give our first blush reviews.
Okay.
What did we think about it? And then we'll get into spoilers.
First blush review. Yeah, that was a movie, all right. Okay, here's the perfect headline if I was writing an article on this. The sophomore jinx strikes again. That's what I would say. Jon Favreau in Iron Man 2, Patty Jenkins in Wonder Woman 1984. Was it an awful movie? It wasn't an Iron Man 2. I mean, Iron Man 2 was not...
Iron Man 2 is not awful.
It's not awful, and I don't understand why people say that. It's not awful. It's not...
They're hampered by the fact that they're one of the worst in the MCU, which is an extremely high floor.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good movies in there. I mean,
yeah.
They have... But, okay, is it... I think someone said the other day, they gave a list, and they put Wonder Woman 1984 below... Not like at or below Justice League, and I'm not going to give it that. No. Was it better than Aquaman? I liked Aquaman. Aquaman.
They're very different kinds of movies.
Yes. I'm just talking about if I'm talking about DC Universe movies. Yeah. Aquaman, I liked it, but I would say this was better. Here's the thing, though. There were a few moments that I was just like, really, we're going there. I think this was, unfortunately, because it is Warner Brothers, and we both have ranted ad nauseum about Warner Brothers Studios over the years. This was one where the studio obviously put a lot of pressure on Patty Jenkins, and I can tell from the very beginning because the feel of like just her at the very beginning didn't feel the same as her, as like her here, like her in the costume, at the mall, that whole scene, that just didn't feel like it was at the very beginning of the first movie. It just didn't feel as like organic, I guess the best way to put it. It felt like this had to be a bubblegum movie. Here's our scene. Here's our bubblegum scene. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I really loved Pedro Pascal in this movie. He was fucking great. Okay, great. And of course, Gal Gadot is just amazing. She's gorgeous. Great actor, great actress. Chris Pine was great. My problems are twofold. One, the way they brought back Chris Pine was kind of crappy. Didn't like it at all. The two, Pedro Pascal's the bad guy, but is he really going to be the guy that wishes for more wishes? We're really going there? That's really our plot device for this movie?
I actually dug the fuck out of that. I thought that was...
you liked it. I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
How the fuck you manage the magical side of DC without doing the Justice League Dark route, which they've done, right? Yeah. But how do you do the Wonder Woman, like, Greek gods magic side without being cheesy as... Like cheesy and so on the nose that pulls everybody out of it.
Which is what they did with Shazam. And that's what they did with the Shazam. It was funny and on the nose.
Yeah.
It was very meta.
Yeah. But they also weren't getting into like the gods and like all that. Like that can just get like Greek, like fucking just like just, I can't quite put it into the right words, but it's like, it's just too much. It's just so much. Because it's not just the DC lore. There's also just like our real world Greek like lore, like that's a thing. And you throw in the magic and how it works in the continuity, and it's like, the fuck do you do that without just breaking your audience's suspension of disbelief? I thought they did that really, really well, set up and executed because Pedro Pascal was perfectly cast.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It was okay. It was not an awful movie. It wasn't good. It wasn't great. It wasn't like as good as the first one. I thought the first one was just perfect. Even though we come to find out later that there was some feedback the studio gave about the ending with
they're the ones that pushed for the total dog shit we got.
Yeah, the total dark shit that we got. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't really like how they brought back Chris Pine. Because he's essentially a wish. He's wished back into existence. Now, what it does establish, though, is that not only do we have gods and Greek gods in the DC universe, but we also have heaven and hell. Because if you listen to what he said, he was like, I was in a really nice place and I liked it there.
Yeah, like they set up some interesting ways to go with like the state of the
Yeah.
DC world
Yeah.
on Wonder Woman's side. That is really cool, and I was like, oh, good, they're opening the door a little bit because they had slammed it really fucking hard shut at the start of Wonder Woman, the first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like all the gods are dead. What the fuck's her story's gonna be about? She's a god. Like, fuck. That's a whole diatribe. But yeah, like like the whole possession thing, it felt entirely superfluous. Like he didn't have to be possessed. Like he could have just been like, I woke up in a field in Germany. That's where he died.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, and that's why it took me a day to get back. I didn't know how to get here. I just learned what planes were and I figured it out. And this guy happened to have money, or like my body had money on it or whatever. Or something like that. Like he didn't need to be possessed for it to work. Yeah. You know? I think they just wanted that scene of her figuring it out. But like, we didn't need that.
Yeah.
Like that scene could have just been her seeing him and realizing, oh my God, that's you. You know, like that would have worked just the same. Cheetah was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, that the arc she had was fine. It was just the fight sucked and the effects were terrible. But that first fight where they throw down in the White House, that was some good shit.
No, that was actually very well choreographed. I liked that.
Yeah, that was fun. Like everything Wonder Woman got to do as Wonder Woman was dope, except for the suit was just, again, you didn't need to see the suit. You know, like we didn't need that. That could have just been a Chekhov suit and we never see it, right? Instead, they put her in the suit because they want to sell the... Like, that came off as we want to sell the toy. Because she throws off the wings, like, right the fuck away. So, like, you didn't need her in the gold suit. You know? Could have just let that be a story beat, and then Asteria shows up in the end, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then go from there. But, like, other bits I liked. One of the things that were kind of its high moments for me, kind of like, you know, in Man of Steel, when he flies for the first time. Like, when he gets the suit and he flies for the first time. That's just a fucking top-tier DC moment.
Yeah, that was.
Her doing the invisible plane thing. And actually using, like, an explanation for how that works in canon. And that she's, like, working on her, like, god powers. That was fucking cool. Like, that worked. And, like, that whole bit with him, with Chris Pine, you know, like, him being the fish out of water. Excellent.
I enjoyed that part. It was hilarious. That was the good comedic portion of the movie. He and Kristen Wiig, when she was awkward and she gets into her little growing into the powers phase of her arc, were both good. But I really I didn't like how he was brought aboard. Just, you know,
like the setup for how he got there was much like the suit. Totally just unnecessary. We didn't need that. You could have just had him show up as Chris Pine in his own fucking body. Yep. Like, we didn't need that other subplot, because that gets weird, because then she's, like, basically raping a dude.
Yep.
Like, that's not, like, I don't say that to get a laugh, because I get serious, but, like...
No, I'm laughing because it's just, like, it just occurred to me, because how awkward does the final scene in the park make it now?
Yeah, like, when she goes away, is he just standing there, realizing it's been a week, and he doesn't remember anything?
Yeah.
That would, like... has his family heard from him? He's lost his job. Like, you didn't need to put those questions in our minds, and you did because of the script choice you made. Like, it didn't need to be an option. It didn't even need to be on the table.
Here's the other thing. I was thinking about this during the mall scene. Are we really going to the point? Because remember, we've established in the timeline before this movie, before 1984 happens, Wonder Woman 84, we've established that the world doesn't know about Wonder Woman until Dawn of Justice.
Yeah.
Right? And then she doesn't become a public hero until just at the end of Justice League, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So, but at this point, we've established that Wonder Woman has existed publicly in 84 because everybody has seen her. We had a cataclysmic world event that really just involved destruction of, you know, the Middle East and like just so many things. It's like basically the entire world was just gone to complete shit because of these wishes. It's like, well, and she was the one to resolve it. So did the world forget about her the last 30 years? Is that what happened?
Like, and again, that's one of those things where they don't follow through because they could have. It's right there. Yeah. When he announces his wish, that should have just sucked everything back up like it never happened.
Yep.
Right?
Well, and that's the thing. That's the part that got me. Some things, if you watch the B roll as it's everything, some things act like they go back to completely
Exactly.
the beginning, and some didn't. Like the water, like the wall falls completely down. Okay, but then water shoots through there
Where it wasn't before.
where it wasn't before. It's like, okay, isn't that a major butterfly effect in terms of like human history at that point in that area? Like, there's just so many things so many questions I have. It's not as frustrating as the end of Endgame with the 5-year jump. Not as frustrating, but for me it was like, okay, we've established that basically the world knows about Wonder Woman in 1980 in that year in 1984. So are people going to wonder, is this the same Wonder Woman 30 years later that's saving people after dark not Dark Side, but what's his name? Crap. What the bad guy of Justice League, Steppenwolf. Are we just gonna completely forget about her for 30 years? Like, because what did she do after 84? That did she go dark again? We don't know.
See, like for me, there's an interesting story here left on the table, which is you start with the opening, the Amazon stuff, which apparently she fought to keep both openings, because it really does have 2 opening scenes, this movie.
Sure.
And they're long, especially that Wonder Woman scene. The Amazon scene is fucking long.
It was really long, yeah.
Which, if that had just been the opening, cool. But then you go to the mall scene, and how it's shot like a 90s superhero movie. Like, not, because like her motion doesn't really, like, she's like the close up of her super speed is just really tight on her upper body, and on her shoulders, which is very 90s Flash. Like, go watch that show. All the super speed is like, it's just him and everything else is blurry. Like, that's all it is, and it's just like floaty kind of running. It just doesn't work. It's like, again, you brought up the Flash earlier in the show. The Flash fucking nailed it. Like, say what you will about the quality of the effects. He's running in super speed, and you just know it. Your brain just goes, yep, he's running at super speed. Got it. How they shoot her powers doesn't always match what they're trying to show for me.
Yeah.
Whereas Superman mostly does, especially in like Man of Steel, how they shot like Faora using her super speed to like go through the soldiers in a line.
Oh yeah.
That was fucking baller, right?
That was great.
They haven't quite nailed that with Wonder Woman. And to Jenkins' credit, Wonder Woman's a hard as fuck character to figure out sometimes on the action side. Because she's this like super badass warrior, but like, how do you show that all the time? Because like her power set's very undefined.
Yeah.
And part of that's on Jenkins to define it, and they haven't quite got there for me yet.
You know what part of her powers confused me? What you're saying really confused me was the scene where they were trying to get into, was it Maxwell Lord's office, and they went through the back way, and she broke the lock to get into the garage door. She struggled. I'm like,
that was the point, though. That was the other thing I want to hit on.
Oh, wait, now you're right. You're correct.
They nailed that slow progression of you figuring out, oh, she's losing her powers. It struck me in the plane scene when she's like telling him about the radar, and then she does the invisible jet scene. Look at her. Go watch and look at her face. She's white as a sheet. Like, she's like, oh, she looks sick. Like, she looks like she's not herself. And they slowly build that up over like 2 days in story. It's like, oh, that is really fucking well done. And then her like realization when she gets shot, and when the lasso slips out of her hand in I think it's Africa she's in, like that fucking hit. Like, that was like one of that Pedro Pascal and that like arc of her like renouncing the wish. Excellently done. But there's a better movie where she still does that, and that is she's not in the Wonder Woman outfit for the entire movie. Because, like, again, in universe, she's not Wonder Woman. Like, she's just not. She's like, after World War I, she just hung it up and said never again. But you could set up in the foreground after the opening, those radio broadcasts or TV station, like, mysterious woman, just random civilian shows up and just like basically punts a truck or something like that,
Yeah.
Like, we didn't need to see her do any superhero stuff. We know she's Wonder Woman. We don't need to have characters figure it out. But you have her struggle with, like, how do I show, like, how do I use my power to help without becoming Wonder Woman? And then at the end, having her show up and in the Wonder Woman outfit, just the regular Wonder Woman outfit to fight Cheetah would have been great. Like that moment of her showing up in the suit, that'd have been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And then undo all of it once Pascal renounces his wish. Undo everything in the movie except for her and Barbara's wishes, because theirs came first. And then so the world totally forgets about her. And then she doesn't still put the suit back on at the end. Like she still walks away from it at the end.
So you agree with me that this movie kind of killed.
They broke the world that they had built.
The world they've been working towards. Yeah.
And like I said, there's a movie where they don't. That's better than what we got.
I can really, I can actually agree with that. I can fall in line with that, because I think what you're saying is what I was also feeling was, and I was mad because we're going at the very beginning, the second scene in the mall, we're immediately going into her in the outfit, and I'm like, okay, that did frustrate me, because I was like, because you agree with me, it's like, okay, well, haven't we established lore that she doesn't exist until Dawn of Justice? Like, she's been in the shadow. She could be doing superhero stuff, but she hasn't been Wonder Woman in the Wonder Woman outfit for the last 30 years. Like, she's been really, mum's the word, like very covert,
Yeah.
And so
she wasn't covert in this movie, like at all.
To be flying around, picking up people with the rope and the lasso, and then going into the mall and playing. It just was really kind of odd to me. I really felt, to me, that felt like that was the studio jumping in. That was Warner Brothers saying, we want her in the outfit right away.
I will say this to WB's credit, according to some Jenkins interviews, they wanted her to cut the mall scene.
Okay.
Like, either pick one, don't get both openings. But because it was streaming, they backed off and said, we're not going to push on the editing choices because it's going to be a streaming release. Like, and I wish they'd stuck to their guns, because I think we get a better movie. Yeah. I think that would have made her go, yep, she's not going to be in the outfit until the end. And then the world's going to totally fucking forget. And that would have been a better story. It would have been a little tighter, because this was 2.5 hours. There's a 2-hour cut of this movie, or like reworked script a little bit to have her not do Wonder Woman stuff for a lot of the movie until the end. That's a much better movie. Which sucks, because I really do like her as Wonder Woman. She's awesome. But, yeah.
I agree with that. I do. I think there was a better movie under here, and I think I'm not gonna say this was a complete failure for Patty Jenkins. I think there were a few mistakes here under.
Oh, they're clearly they're fast tracking 3. It was a success, but
yeah. I get that, but I think there was a lot of pressure for her, because she became the director for not just Warner Brothers, but in terms of like action, she is going to be the next big one.
Yeah, that and the world that Warner Brothers has built on the DC side has left some characters in weird spots post Justice League, like where they've decided to take their story has left the other stuff, in the absence of an overarching vision, in some weird caveats of like, what the fuck do we do? Are we doing a shared universe? Are we not? Do we have to stick to the lore? Do we not? Like, that's what happens when you don't have that vision, and when you say, hey, creators, do whatever the fuck you want. Sometimes things don't mesh, and in glaring ways. So be curious to see, because she said Wonder Woman 3 is going to be a more contemporary story, which means probably post-Justice League or whatever they do with Flashpoint Paradox and the Batman, depending on what they do. And like, they're moving into now, they're going to have 3 live-action universes, basically. Like, one specific to HBO Max, the Arrowverse, whenever that wraps up. That's probably only got a few years left in the tank, really. And then the DC EU proper, maybe. I don't know what we call it. I don't know what they're going to do. Like, they say they want to put the riskier projects on Max, and I'm like, on Max. I'm like, Static Shock's been thrown around. I'm like, if you think, in the year 2021, if you think Static Shock is a risky proposition, you're a fucking idiot. Static Shock is a slam fucking dunk of a movie.
Well, it depends on who they cast as Static Shock.
That's the thing, though. It's your, like, people talk about, like, oh, that's your, like, Spider-Verse, Bat Family stuff. Like, no. Static Shock is the answer to Spider-Verse.
That's a good point.
Given the lead. Like, if you're going to throw that angle of, he is a young African-American male figuring out how to be a superhero, he's got his mentor and, like, Black Lightning and all that stuff. Like, it's there. Just fucking do it. But It's what it, yeah.
Well, I think the problem here at this point is their next big venture on HBO Max in terms of like the DC content live action is they're putting all of their eggs into Green Lantern.
Yeah.
I think
Which, to be
they're
fair,
just they're
yeah.
so focused on that.
To be fair, I've long been a proponent of doing shorter form but longer series, like mini series, almost level content for their superhero characters. I think that format, much like Mandalorian for Star Wars, works better for superheroes
Yeah.
than movies do. Unless you're going to be a Marvel where it's one vision and it really is 22 episodes. Like, that's what the MCU is. It is a 22-part series. Like, it is an overarching vision. No one's fucking around. There's a showrunner in Kevin Feige. You know, like, there's one studio in Marvel. They're not fucking around. It's one story. Doing that on an HBO level makes sense. Because, like, you could tell a really cool, down-to-earth, here's your main core Justice League story. Or maybe you do it as an investigative journalism piece, but, like, through the lens of Clark Kent, and then Superman shows up at the end. There's some really cool potential there. So I'm not going to like shit on it because it's WB. I kind of want to, but there's some cool fucking potential there for longer form content that we haven't really gotten in DC stories, even with like the Arrowverse, because that's such a TV thing. Like giving it, superheroes are one of the few mediums that haven't really gotten that kind of like premiere primetime cable TV look. Like they kind of skipped that. Like they just went straight from, oh hey, Blade and X-Men figured it out, it's all movies all the time, and they never went to TV in a serious fucking way.
I think
until the Netflix series.
I was going to say
until then.
Daredevil is going to be regarded as one of those shows that really shook things up in terms of how a superhero show is produced. Because by that point, you know, we were deep into the Arrowverse. You know,
we were very deep into that. That was season
5 seasons, 6 season 6, 5 versus 5 seasons.
Yeah, it was like going into season 5. Yeah, it was deep in the run.
And then season 2 of Flash, and things were just the Arrowverse was like in high gear because I think we had Supergirl at that point.
Yeah, Supergirl was getting started. Like they had hit the stride.
Yeah, but I think with and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was like several seasons in at that point too. But I think with what Daredevil showed, you can take the premium cable approach of non-rated content and create a really good miniseries, like a story over a season. And they did a great job of it with great actors. Like for me, Vincent D'Onofrio, he just, I mean, if there was one person out of all these superhero movies that deserved, an award, like an Emmy or an Oscar, Vincent D'Onofrio was amazing in that first season as Wilson Fisk. Just fun. And that's not to say. I mean, I think Charlie Cox was unbelievable, and I'm so happy they're bringing him back because he is what you've wanted out of Daredevil.
Yeah.
I just think that really changed the game in terms of how these shows can be produced. I was hoping we were going to get that with Swamp Thing, but that was before it was moved over to HBO Max. You know, if it had waited a year and a half and been produced through HBO Max, I think Swamp Thing would have been a lot better. Yeah. I think so.
Like to take this back to call this all the way back to the beginning here before we wrap up.
Yeah,
I mentioned that like Deep Space Nine was like a show that if you look at the story of Deep Space Nine through the lens of, hey, we're gonna give it this a premium, like HBO, like The Wire, like Justified, like this is gonna be prime fucking time cable, like lens of storytelling. You can see what threads they would have pulled and what they would have said. We're gonna focus on that and how awesome that would have been.
Yeah.
Smallville to me is like, to go to the Superman way, a similar one. Look at like what they did with Michael Rosenbaum's Lex and Lionel Luthor in those early seasons. Throw that kind of like political, high, affluent, like drama storytelling mixed in with a burgeoning Superman story. Like him figuring it out and being friends with Lex and the fallout of that friendship over like a 2 or 3 season run.
Sure.
Holy shit. That's amazing. Like, it's basically the best parts of that show condensed into like 20 episodes, which is fucking cool. Like there's something there that I don't think DC has ever really capitalized on in a way that they could have. Like they've done everything else. They've done movies, they've done animated, they've done multiple animated universes, multiple live action universes. They did fucking Crisis on Infinite Earths in live action. Yep. But they haven't done that kind of just like fuck it, we're gonna give this a 9 million episode of budget run, like a Game of Thrones level. This is what it's gonna be. This is gonna be our Mandalorian. Like, and I think they could do that with some of their premier characters, and I hope Green Lantern's one of them.
Well, they're going to have to with Green Lantern because you're talking about Mandalorian, space, an open world, like an open universe. That's the Green Lantern. There. Yeah, the Green Lantern is perfect because, especially if they're going to start from day one talking about the entire spectrum of light.
Yeah,
you know, if it's in the play,
it's Berlanti. Is it Berlanti or Guggenheim that's doing it?
I think it's Guggenheim that's doing it.
One of the two, like a lot of the Arrowverse guys. Those two dudes fucking get DC Comics. Like, they get it. So I'm like, shit. If they can pull a Favreau and get Green Lantern off the ground and do the Light War, all the lights, holy shit. That's some nerdy, cool fucking shit I'm here for.
Well, you think about it. Let's just say the first season, of course, is about Hal Jordan, right?
Yeah, like learning about the spectrum and like
learning about the light spectrum. The first half of it is learning about the green light.
You'll plant some seeds, though.
Yeah, exactly. But then by the end of the first season, you talk about that there is the War of Light. Maybe the first season it's about Hal Jordan joining the Green Lantern Corps, and then Sinestro making his turn to becoming, dark, and maybe that's the first season. And the payoff at the end of it is the Sinestro Corps. Okay, great. But then season 2, you can introduce the Red Lanterns and Atrocious. Like you could slowly build your way to the War of Light over like a 3 or 4 season, and then maybe at the end of it all, like the last season, you say it's going to be about Blackest Night. That would be really fucking cool. Because you have the ability to string this out over 5 years or over 10 years, because there's so much of a universe like Star Wars with the Mandalorian that you could do this, and you can branch off into different shows if you wanted to, or miniseries.
My brain just did a holy shit. So if they do these miniseries stories with different characters, they could build, like Blackest Night could be their big, hey, we're gonna do like our Batman miniseries. We're gonna do our like whatever miniseries. Maybe we're gonna do like Impulse. Like we'll do a Flash, but like it'll be Impulse or something. Like a different character to set it apart from the Arrowverse. And then they build into Blackest Night as like that's their crossover. Like, oh shit, that'd be cool.
I mean, there's potential there with bringing in the Green Lantern IP now. I mean, there's a lot.
Watch the Bruce Timm Green Lantern? They just got the 1 season. Have you ever watched it? It's like that 3D animated one.
No, never watched.
That was awesome.
I watched the movies, the animated movies. I never watched the series.
They completely set up the spectrum of light and like the war. It was mostly all about the Red Lanterns, but we got some Blue Lantern stuff. They set up the Black Lanterns. They set up the Yellow Lanterns. They set everything up, but we just never got the payoff in season 2. They did the Anti-Monitor. They did the whole 9 yards, which is like, holy shit, that show was fucking great. And I'm really sad we never got to see a season 2. So I'm gonna rewatch that before Green Lantern drops, whenever we get to it, because I don't even know if it'll be 2021 at this point.
Who knows?
Because we're gonna get the CW Green Lantern before we're gonna get HBO's, which is just crazy to me. How fast they can move on things is nuts. I mean, they beat Ant-Man's Growing Big to the Punch by a week, because I wonder if they heard that was going to be in the movie and they're like, fuck it, we need the Atom to get big on screen first. Stuff like that.
Well, all it takes is a PA person or a scriptwriter just leaking it to a buddy of his over at the other studio.
Like, they've done much cool shit.
We got the script for Civil War, and we think there's going to be a major fight scene, of course, but we think that he's going to go Giant Man. Well, then fuck it. Let's put Giant Man in the next couple episodes. Let's write him in now.
Yeah,
we talked about this. It makes sense that would happen because we talked about the Ant-Man up Thanos' butt meme,
and they did it not even in the Arrowverse.
A couple weeks later, he does it on Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah,
like just a few weeks after it went viral.
Yeah,
so it makes sense that that's what happened with that. Like, if there's one big nugget that pops up within Marvel's content that's upcoming, let's try to jump the gun with them, just to kind of be a fuck you to them, basically.
And Legends is the perfect show for that, because it is meta as fuck. Like, they literally will bring in reviews of like actual websites and read them on the show. Like, they've done that twice now. They've brought in actual reviewers who read reviews of season 1, and then have the characters read them to like lampoon something they're watching on TV.
Uh-huh.
They're meta as fuck, and I love it. Arrowverse gets a lot of shit because it's corny and cheesy and mostly trash, but there's some cool shit in there.
So basically, to circle back, Wonder Woman wasn't awful, wasn't great.
Yeah, kind of lost the thread there.
No. That's what we do. That's what you and I do all the time. And I mean, that's the best thing about this kind of stuff when we talk about this kind of these shows and these productions and these comics and games and so forth. We just kind of go on tangents. But yeah, it's one of those things where I don't want to go lash out at Warner Brothers again, but I will say that I was just a tad bit disappointed in Wonder Woman 84. It felt like you said, underneath all of that, there was something that could have been really special in there.
Yeah.
And for someone who grew up in the 80s, I was so excited about this movie.
Yeah, and that's they didn't. There's nothing about the 80s in the movie.
No, like the biggest part of the 80s was Steve's adaptation into the 80s, his integration.
And that could have been at any point.
Yeah. Well, we did that in the 90s with Captain Marvel. The same thing happened.
Yeah.
The same thing. Her shock to getting adjusted to 90s Earth culture was the same thing Steve had to do in the 80s in Wonder Woman 84. But it was just a continuing punchline for about what was he on screen for? Maybe an hour.
That's a
maybe
good
an hour.
Punchline that didn't need to be in the 80s for it to be effective. And other than the fashion stuff, that was really all they did that was like relevant to the 80s. Everything else would have worked as a contemporary story. And it just didn't need to be in the 80s. Like there was a lot of unnecessary shit that weighed this movie down from being what it could be.
Yeah.
From where the character could go, which leads me to be a little more actually kind of very roundabout way hyped for Wonder Woman 3 if it's going to be a present day timeline story, because I actually want to see what they do with that. Like, I want to see her actually in the world where that knows about Superman, that knows about Batman and the Justice League. Like, I want to see Wonder Woman in that world, which we haven't got to really see yet. So, that'll be interesting. Anything you want to add before we get on to like our very quick last topic?
No, let's go into it. Let's go into the last. Let's wrap this bad boy up as we wrap up the year.
Exactly. We're wrapping up 2020, the whole damn thing. So we're gonna go through real quick. I want a favorite movie or show or game, like 2 or 3 things that are like, this was the best thing I experienced this year. Doesn't have to be in this year. Could have been something you discovered this year, but I've mostly got stuff that's from this year. So
I have a list right here, but I'm gonna give you just a couple of them.
Okay.
It did come out in 2019, but I didn't watch it until 2020. Parasite was a great movie. Great movie. Of course, The Mandalorian season 2, unbelievable. Lovecraft Country, I'm going to say, was disappointing to me because the first few episodes I praised it, and then it just seemed to drop off. Yeah. It just seemed to lose its way. Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Lovecraft Country, I was gonna hit on. That screams. Oh, that'd have been a dope movie, but a bad TV show.
Yeah, that's one where if you it's one that deserves like a 2.5 hour movie, like a longer movie, but would have been really good. The show it's one of those stories that when you're trying to fill, it's not working. Like with Star Wars, how the filler makes the movie,
the world's lore deep enough,
better, and it fills out the world. That doesn't happen with Lovecraft Country. Yes. Umbrella Academy season 2, thought it was great. Lastly, in terms of TV for me, Better Call Saul season 5, fucking loved it. It got so close to where we are with Breaking Bad because I love the show. It's different from Breaking Bad, but the last 2 seasons, they really showed you how you're getting closer to him becoming Saul Goodman, which is unbelievable. And it leaves you this big question about, well, where the hell is Kim Wexler in Breaking Bad? And, it's creating an ominous, like ending to Better Call Saul. Like something had to have happened to Kim Wexler for her not to be around in Breaking Bad because she's such a big part of his life. And of course, The Boys season 2, unfucking believable. That shit was the balls. Not gonna lie. It
was great. So my list, pretty similar. I like The Boys, Mandalorian. I actually didn't get into Mandalorian season 1 until this year, so I experienced all of that this year. Sure. Some additional ones. 2 are actually Harley Quinn related. Harley Quinn, her movie. I can't remember the whole fucking title.
Just call it Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey.
Just Birds of Prey.
That was actually a really fun movie. It was the last movie I got to go to in theaters, and I went with Joey, and it was just a blast. It was just a fun movie. Like, and I
So
just
I got
really
to
enjoyed it.
ask this question real quick. So were you both going in thinking, "Oh God, here we go with more Margot Robbie. It's going to be an
I
awful
actually didn't
movie."
mind her in Suicide Squad. Like, and I have really appreciated, like, man, they really actually are trying to build a little bit of part of world there. You got some cool Huntress stuff. You got Black Canary, Renee Montoya. I really wish we would have got a little Jim Gordon with Renee Montoya. I don't know why we had to go with the cop captain we didn't want. Could have been Jim Gordon. That'd have been cooler, but whatever. That was one of my few gripes. Ewan McGregor as Black Mask, awesome. Like they had Victor Zsasz like in there. Like they brought some characters in there and they fucking used them, which was really cool. And like I really liked the cast. Like what's her is Jussie Smollett? Is that her name? Am I
Jussie
saying it
Smollett.
right? She was in
I think
Lovecraft
so.
Country. She's Black Canary. I want to see him. I want her to get a movie. She was awesome. She was that good. So I'm hoping.
No, Jussie Smollett. Jussie, you're thinking of
that's
the
that's her.
actor.
Is that her brother?
I think that I don't know if they're related or not. I don't
I think
know.
they
I
are
have to
related
look.
because he was in Mighty
I don't
Ducks.
know.
I might be. Yeah, but I'm fairly certain they're related. Maybe they're cousins or something.
Probably. I wouldn't.
Because they're
doubt it.
around the
I
same
wouldn't doubt
age too, so it makes me wonder if they're related. But beside the point. Then Harley Quinn's animated show. I got into that this year.
I did too.
Fuck, that
I
show's
caught up
great.
with it.
That show's
Fucking
amazing.
hilarious.
I cannot
Fucking hilarious.
wait for season 3. That's gonna be so good. Oh my god, that show is fucking perfect. I didn't expect it was gonna be that good. I knew it was all right and it was funny because I got into the show a little bit. Cause like, oh, Raul Coley's gonna be Scarecrow. Okay, I'll give it a shot. Not a huge Kaylee Cuoco fan, but fine, I'll try. Holy shit, is it great? Ah, so good. Ah, just awesome. Her and Poison Ivy story over 2 seasons, just fuck yeah.
Oh, but come on, King Shark's hilarious.
Yeah, King Shark, Kite Man, the whole thing. They bring fucking Michael Ironside to come back as Darkseid. That doesn't get you in. What the fuck?
Clayface, Kite Man. I mean, God, it's just.
It's an Alec Tudyk, like, just smorgasbord, because he's like 4 characters. Ugh.
Yeah. Okay. I have to say the dark horse of that show is Bane. I have to say it's Bane just because he's the animated series looking Bane, but he's
making fun of Dark Knight Rises.
Christopher Nolan's voice Bane. It cracks me up.
Oh, it's so good. Like, it's so many great the running gag with the here's your chair, and it's like all the light shines on the chair, and it's like, oh god, there's just so many great moments in that show. I can't pick them out. Like Kite Man's like just the hell yeah. Like so many cool fucking moments in that show.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Just great gags that you just don't see coming, and they just fucking floor you.
Can't wait for the next season.
It's gonna be
great.
Real quick, then looking forward now, since we just looked back, what are you looking forward to in 2021? I've got a short list of movies on my dock, but what do you got that you're looking for?
I'm excited about Dune. Can't wait. I have a feeling this is going to be a really good movie. A great cast, great director. I'm told that the score is going to be unbelievable for it as well. I think this is going to have all 3 elements. It's going to make it a great story. I know. Is it Lionsgate? Is the production company?
Yes, and that's the one that they're suing Warner Brothers.
Right. They're suing Warner Brothers because of the fact that they were basically undercut into putting this on HBO Max when they didn't want it to be put on directly on the streaming service. But still, that aside, I'm really excited about that movie. Cobra Kai. So January is going to be really good for me. Because in a couple days we get to watch Cobra Kai on January 1st, and then a few days later we get WandaVision.
Oh yeah.
And then in was it March is when Falcon and the Winter Soldier come out.
Yep, and then Black Widow, and then
Loki
over the summer.
I mean, but like the first quarter of next year is going to have some really good stuff coming out, and I'm really excited. I'm excited for WandaVision because it's piquing my interest because of Sword. I want to see what this does and what this means for the series finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because. Just spoiler alert, Daisy is out in space to end the show, so it makes you wonder if they weren't allowed to mention Sword, what does that mean for her? Why is she out in space? And why doesn't Sword know about her and her other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in space? That's kind of their turf. But I'm really looking forward to Cobra Kai. I think the first I went back and rewatched, and you can watch this in half a day. You can watch both seasons. Really great show. Season 3 looks like it's setting up a lot more of the Okinawa a little more in depth and more of a redemption arc for Johnny Lawrence. So I'm really happy about that. So I really think it's a very underrated show. Putting it on Netflix was great because then they have that fat budget to work with. So I'm really excited for that. Also, Stranger Things. I don't know when it's gonna fucking come out, but I'm
Gotta
ready
be
for
this
Stranger
summer.
Things season
Like
4.
it's done, isn't it?
It's been done. I mean, they just haven't announced when. It's early 2021 is what they've said, and the sooner the better, man. You know, we waited till the 4th of July of last year to get season 3.
Yeah.
Like, am I gonna have to wait all summer, or am I gonna the year before wait till Halloween? Like, you can't do me like that, man. Don't
Yeah.
wait the whole year for season 4 because season 3 was such a great season, a great season.
I want to know how the fuck Hopper gets back to America.
Yeah, dude. Like, seriously, and how long the time gap? How long has he been in Russia? And they have a Demogorgon just hanging out in a cell. Like, there's got to be so much to finish this up. And apparently, a large chunk of this story is not going to take place in Hawkins, Indiana. So I'm curious what's going to happen. I'm really excited for that. But I will say probably the biggest thing for me in terms of like production movies is going to be probably Black Widow. I want to see what happens with their story. Also. I am a little excited about Eternals. Not gonna lie, I'm curious on this one because this is a very undersung story. I was very excited when they announced Guardians of the Galaxy years back, and no one knew who the fuck they were. Then automatically, when that movie came out, everyone became a Guardians aficionado. Just like, you know, I was a huge Deadpool fan for a long time, and then all of a sudden, everyone came up to me. Did you know Deadpool he's based off of a DC character? Yes, I know. Leave me alone. I know.
Yes,
I've known this. I've known this like all my life. Don't come to me with that shit.
Fusion's the original hipster.
Yeah, I am.
He's the comics hipster.
I actually have the age to back it up too. But yeah, there's a lot of shit coming out at the beginning of 2021.
It's a lot of cool shit.
A lot of cool shit. Looking forward to it.
Like we get hopefully not a terrible video game movie in Uncharted.
Hopefully,
Mission Impossible 7, which they shot back to back with 8, which means we're probably gonna get a dope fucking cliffhanger. Yes. New Superman show with like a great cast. So I'm hoping that nails it. Matrix 4. What the fuck are they going to do with that? Godzilla versus Kong? Like, that's going to be awesome to watch on streaming. It's going to be like the perfect streaming movie, man. It's going to be great. But yeah, Matrix 4 is just like so... Oh, that's so weird that they're doing that. Like, why?
And it's coming out on TV. It's coming out on HBO Max.
I know.
Isn't that just wild to you?
Other stuff like... we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Snake Eyes. Like, I want to see that. I want to see a trailer. I want to know, like, okay, what is this movie going to be? I love Snake Eyes as a character. I'm intrigued. I'm hoping it's good. So there's some very fun projects down the line in 2021.
Outside of like that, I'm talking in terms of games, Halo Infinite. I'm still going to be interested in it. I'm not gonna lie because I mean, you know, they're going to pump a lot of money into this game, and hopefully it is ready. But I'm hoping it's going to be a good game because everybody, you know, we can always have more
God of
Master
War.
Chief in
God
our
of War
life.
gets a sequel this year too.
God of War, another one. I mean, there's some good shit coming out. So, you know, hopefully once, you know, we can get through this pandemic, guys. I know I think we may not be on the back end, but we're getting very close to being on the back end of it. And I hope that we can do that to once again, like, you know, go to the movies, enjoy brunch. Because I miss brunch. God, I miss brunch so much.
I can't wait to just like Joey, meet me in Forest City. We're going to Mason. We're gonna get some wings or some pizza, maybe a burrito, and then we're going to the movies.
I think the other thing, dude, is we need to make a trip to where we all meet up in Oklahoma City.
I will straight up fucking drive down to OKC
for Del Taco. Come on,
100%. I don't give a shit about RTX. I will drive down to Oklahoma City just to fucking hang out for a weekend. I'll take a Friday and a Monday.
I think we've established that hopefully by the back end of 2021 that we're gonna have some type of barbecue over here in Austin, right?
Yep, I'm down.
All right,
I'll just fly down. Fuck the bringing everything. I'll just fly down.
I've perfected this pit, so I think we can do some serious Texas style barbecue. But I mean, all that aside, guys, there's just so much good stuff coming out in 2021 that I hope that hopefully we can kick off the year with a good mindset and things get better with the pandemic and we can get back to enjoying this stuff without having the stress of that backdrop. You know, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Well, with that said, I think it's about time we wrap up. And I didn't even mention at this point, guys. We're on all the podcasting services now, like fucking everywhere.
So everywhere.
If there's a place where you can leave a review on the platform, or a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Let us know what you're looking forward to in 2021 or what some of your favorite media moments were. Let's focus on some positive stuff here for the year 2020. Negatives, fine too, but come on, positive people. It's the end of the year. Let's not be entirely negative. And leave a review. Of course, share so people can like see our content and listen to our amazing voices and stuff. And Fusion's new microphone. To their heart's content on like Spotify and iTunes and like Amazon, and I'm sure we'll be on Amazon's new service because they just fucking bought somebody again. Of course they did. And like, so it's a whole new world because we're on a bunch of places. So definitely subscribe and download and do all the things that help the algorithms. You know what they are. I don't need to explain them all. So with that said, hopefully the start of your 2021 is better than how 2020's gone. So
yeah.
Bye.
Have a good year, everybody.